An already strained relationship between the United States and Iran took a large hit overnight when the U.S. military carried out an airstrike at the Baghdad airport. One of Iran's top military officials, Qasem Soleimani, was killed in that attack. Now Iran is promising to retaliate. Throughout the day, we have seen tweets from Republican lawmakers saying Soleimani was responsible for previous and future plans to kill U.S. diplomats. Even Democrats who disagree with the airstrike called him a murderer responsible for the deaths of thousands. But for many people here in the United States, this is their first time hearing of Soleimani. Jennifer Bellamy is here to walk us through his history. Jennifer, killing this man was a huge escalation in this conflict.
Yes, Cheryl. General Qasem Soleimani is Iran's most senior general. He has a lot of political power. Some say as far as political influence, he was right behind the country's supreme leader. The 62-year-old led forces of the Quds Force, which the U.S. designates as a foreign terrorist organization. He has also been accused of controlling other militias in countries like Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria. The Pentagon claims Soleimani is responsible for planning a series of attacks on allied bases in Iraq. The most recent of those was a rocket strike that killed a U.S. contractor and wounded 4 service members. The U.S. responded with 5 airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, which prompted militia supporters to storm the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. In a statement announcing his death, the Pentagon also claims Soleimani was planning attacks against U.S. diplomats and service members in Iraq and other places in the Middle East. But over the years, many also gave Soleimani credit for being a leading force in the fight against ISIS in the Middle East. That fight was something Iran sought to highlight after his death. Now, Iran has already announced Soleimani's replacement to lead the Quds Force. Right now, the United States is sending an additional 3,000 soldiers to the Middle East after attacks at the U.S. embassy in Baghdad earlier this week.